From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Morgan. With me today is my beautiful co-host, Angelique Perrin, who's waving at me across the table like I can't see her. I know you're there.
Hi.
Welcome back. You have had a couple of weeks off of wonderful travel.
Yes.
And the thing we want to talk about is you took beautiful Mama Joyce to Vegas to see Bruno Mars for Mother's Day.
She says hi.
Hi, Mama Joyce.
Oh my gosh, that concert was so good.
I bet.
It's Bruno Mars's collaboration with Anderson .Paak, who's like a rapper-singer.
Right.
Kind of mostly rapper, but he's he plays instruments as well. Silk Sonic is the group. Leave the Door Open is like their huge hit, #1 on most of the charts except for country, you know. And from the second you walked into this venue, they're playing the old school good stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they're getting you in the mood immediately with that, Casey and the Sunshine Band and, the Peaches and Herb. And you're like, wow. And everybody's up kind of dancing and grooving. And, when you go to a show in Vegas, it's always a mixed crowd.
Right.
Because
people come from all over.
Exactly. But this was not only a mixed crowd. Like the people behind us were like in their 60s,
right?
Sort of hippie like. The people beside us were some like young black hip hop kids, and the people in front of us were like 30-something Latino. Right. But everybody, once they came out, and they're doing the like Temptations moves, and they got on their crazy little old school outfits, and Anderson .Paak has on this ridiculous bob wig that looks like Kate Jackson in Charlie's Angels.
Wow.
Thank you for not making me have to explain that. And they come out doing their dance move. Everybody was up dancing and just... If you get a chance to go, just go. I only know the one song from Silk Sonic, the Leave the Door Open song. They did each a couple. Bruno had to do like 3 or 4 of his solo hits. Anderson .Paak did 2 of his solo things.
What a great collab, though.
Absolutely. And Anderson came out and he said, I want to thank Bruno Mars for changing my life, changing my life. Because Anderson .Paak was like this undiscovered guy who I kind of discovered by accident. And Bruno Mars said, hey man, can I play drums for you sometime? And he's like, huh? No, you can't touch my drums. And next thing you know, they have an album, or at least a song, and then an album. And this show was sold so well, they added more shows to it. And yes, I bought more tickets.
I saw an interview with Anderson on KTLA Morning News, Channel 5 here, and he is just a humble, spectacular sounding human being. Just from like a 5-minute interview, it was like, wow, you're a pretty cool dude.
It seems that way. Yeah. Did he have on the Kate Jackson wig?
He did not. He did have on some funky-ass glasses and a hat.
Okay.
But no 1980s, 70s bobs. That sounds like from the Muppet Show or something. That sounds...
Well, I mean, and he plays drums, too, so he really could have just been,
Right. Like Animal from the Muppet Show is what it sounds like. Yeah.
No, it was great. They played, Bruno Mars played the... I guess it's congas. Mm-hmm. I don't know which ones are the tall
djembes,
ones.
Maybe djembes.
The tall hand drums. Yeah. I don't know. Anderson played his drums. Bruno Mars played the piano and the guitar. And it was just a beautiful. If you know soul music and you appreciate it, the way they wove in.
It does sound like a great mix.
They're playing one song, but then they break off into singing the Stylistics, or they break off into singing some Michael Jackson. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, everybody should be here right now. Everyone.
It sounds like the great unifier.
It was.
Yeah.
It absolutely was. And that's what was beautiful. As a radio personality and as someone who has gone to so many concerts, I'm not impressed by a concert.
Right.
And I was impressed, even without
That's
knowing
great.
their music. And even just looking in the audience at all the different people who were up and who knew the songs, and you could tell who were Bruno Mars fans and who were Silk Sonic fans and who were Anderson .Paak fans. And I'm just looking around. I'm like, wow, yes, great unifier. It felt good in this time of, utter division.
It does sound like, music is kind of a unifier, and that sounds like a level up unifier than most. So I have to ask you this, and I know you've been busy for the last couple of weeks, but I covered the Al Green and the Grits case last week.
Ooh, without me.
Yeah, sorry, baby. You were out of town. You're a busy girl. Can't help it. So what happened was my friend Anthony sent me what he thought was a funny copy of a text between he and someone else, and I didn't get it. And he said, someone said to him, or he said, can I call you tonight or talk to you tonight? And the person said to him, does Al Green fear grits? And I was like, is Al Green lactose intolerant, or is he getting off carbs? I had zero clue.
Right.
So I'm old, and I spoke to a lot of people of different ages, some my age, some older, some younger. No one had heard of the case.
Oh.
So it's in 221, I think, episode 221 last week. I wanted to talk about it because of May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Gotcha.
And I want to bring the National Suicide Prevention Hotline up again. I did it twice last week, beginning and end of the episode, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And Mary Woodson, who was Al Green's, lady of, the time, that was absolutely terrifying. And then to hear, she used his gun, she wrote 2 suicide notes, and then to think that he was recovering from 3rd-degree burns and then being questioned by the police. They thought he did it. They thought his security team did it. They thought the other woman who was staying with him in one of the many guest rooms in his home, it had to just be absolutely positively awful to go through that experience. And then to find out that, Naomi Judd killed herself with a firearm. It's so rare. Jenks
for
on me, a woman. No one's coming in the door. She's walking wood. For a woman to use a firearm, it's so rare. And I know we both have a lot more to say about firearms and the use of things. But right now, what I want to say is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. And if you're struggling with any sort of mental health issues, I really hope that you call. It's free, and if they can't help you, they'll find someone who can. I said last week, after hearing what got me to cover this case and feel ignorant that I didn't know it even was a case, is I was a little kid, and I knew we went from calling Al Green to the Reverend Green, and I just assumed it meant he found God. Had no idea.
Me too.
That situation with Mary Woodson, and then a subsequent situation in Cincinnati, where I'm from, where he fell off a stage and fell 12 feet and was uninjured. He said he felt like the incident with Mary was God saying, you pay attention. Because Mary had said to him, Al, you're going to be a big star. And he's like, well, most people think I already am. And she goes, no, not like that. You're going to be preaching to thousands of people and making a difference. And he goes, the only thing I preach is love and happiness. Like he made a little joke. Mm-hmm. But she was right. And that propelled him, and the fall off the stage and recovering propelled him to become a reverend, that he still, has the tabernacle now in Memphis.
Wow, I have to go back and listen.
Yeah, you do. It's a really good podcast. You should listen.
No, I mean, I've been traveling. So
I know you're busy. You're a busy girl. And I didn't want to spring this one on you, but girl, I have to talk about it because it's timely. I really don't want to talk about it. I do want to say before we start, because I do not like, serial killers. I've been talking to Angelique about how much I hate serial killer cases. And I don't hate them. I don't enjoy covering them, and I'll explain why. It's a pathology that I'm absolutely fascinated by. And we had a little discussion before we started about a couple of cases I didn't even know about that I'm going to be looking into that you told me about. I just feel like in my lifetime, I'm not ever going to understand or comprehend that. I think I'm much more fascinated in someone who takes someone's life for what I think are the 3 big, sex, money, or revenge. Most serials it's a sexually motivated crime, but sex, money, or revenge, those three big ones, I'm more fascinated in who the fuck do you think you are that you can take another person's life? A serial killer is a mind that I'm not going to understand, that I'm not going to get, you know? And God bless the people, the Paul Holes, the Barbara Venters, the people who are profilers and also DNA experts, because they're the people that can help solve these things. Right. I just feel like there are places with much more, you know, resources and research, and they will cover these cases better than me. But I feel like when authorities ask for help with a pretty high profile case, I want us to be there. I want to talk about it. So if anyone listening within the sound of my voice has any information, we can be of help. I'm very angry when people say podcasts solve, you know, cases. No, they don't. They're a cog in the wheel. Law enforcement solve cases. I'm delighted if I'm ever a cog in the wheel. And we know from this podcast and others, there are people listening who can make a difference, who have called in and made a difference, or emailed in and made a difference. And now there are many ways to contact this particular law enforcement agency. It's many law enforcement agencies working on this task force. You can text anonymously. You can email anonymously. There's a new way you can email and they can't trace you. You can call. It's anything you know that might be helpful. This is, I mean, I just think, you know, I've covered a few serial killers, the Key Collector, the Grim Sleeper, Israel Keys, the West Mesa Killer, obviously Golden State Killer. And it's multiple episodes because they're usually such big cases. Yeah. We're going to do this in one case, and we're just going to go over a timeline, but we're going to explain what has happened in the last week that people can actually help. People can actually call, or if you have any information, they have done an amazing thing by putting this website together that's easily accessed with all of the history, with pictures of the evidence. The Long Island serial killer is different for me.
Oh.
Yeah. Continue. And there's new stuff coming out about it. It's different for me. I also can't stand the word dump site. I just feel like no human being should ever be considered dumped. You know, there's so many outlets about this case. There's a specific podcast. There's so many television documentaries about this case, and they list them all on this new website, which is kind of phenomenal. It's gilgonews.com, and I'll repeat it again later. But they have updated things as recently as this last Friday, 2 days ago.
I saw something on the news just recently.
What they're doing, this task force is, you know, what they're doing is, I think it's amazing. You know, they say there's usually 50 serial killers operating in the United States at any one time. I know.
That's horrifying.
It is horrifying. I felt like it was low at one point, and now I'm like, oh, you know what? It's probably about right, because, you know, they age out, right. And then, you know, like they don't have testosterone flooding their system, so they, you know,
stop.
And, you know, just can't help it. Gonna say mostly men. You know, not a lot of female serials, but, you know, I do feel like it's, you know, mostly men. But Lisk is different. I mean, I'm just going to assume he's a he because it's mostly, you know, marginalized women that were advertising on Craigslist. But he's also, like people on the fringe of society, he's also kind of branched out, like an Asian man who probably was living as a woman and a toddler. And the toddler ended up being, all found on Gilgo Beach. The toddler ended up being connected to a woman via DNA. One of the women he killed a beautiful Black woman and her child, and they were connected via DNA and jewelry. Some like a 1 to 2 year old toddler female.
So when does this start?
It's amazing. He actually probably started, these are not all connected. We're going to go through a timeline, but probably in 1982. But what started this whole thing being found has to go back to May of 2010 with Shannon Gilbert. So Shannon was, you know, a beautiful young girl who advertised on Backpage, or, you know, she was working as an escort and had gone to a fancy home of a client on Oak Beach in May of 2010. And she has kind of a breakdown. This is the kind of high high-priced escorts who have drivers, which is smart. So she had a driver who took her and would wait for her. And then she would pay him part of, what she got for her payment. And he made some mistakes. Everybody made some mistakes that night. She left, the client actually called 911 and said, there's a woman at my house freaking out. She left the client's home, ran to an elderly neighbor's home and said, I need help. People are after me. He called 911.
Yes, I live at Oak Beach in the association. There's a young girl about 14 years old running around here screaming, and there's some guy trying to follow her.
What's the address there?
I'm at 17 The Fairway.
All right. You have a description of the girl or the boy?
Pardon me?
Do you have a description of the girl or the boy?
The girl is about 14 years old, got blonde hair, very small. The boy, I can't tell. He was into like a Suburban.
What color?
Black.
There were many 911 calls that night.
What is the location of your emergency?
43 The Bayou. Some woman is knocking at my door.
What town are you in?
Oak Beach Association.
What's the nearest corner street there?
Ocean Parkway. She says she's in danger.
Do you know her or no?
No, I don't. I'm not letting her in.
She's banging on your door there?
Yes.
Did she say what kind of danger?
No.
And there were, you could hear Shannon in the background, basically devolving and having, in multiple calls. They are now releasing more calls just in the last week, as well as video of another victim from a Holiday Inn that she was at. They're really trying to put everything out there that they can, hoping someone knows one or more of these people or can say that guy could have done this. At one point they thought it was a Long Island resident because of specific bags that were used by landscapers, like a certain burlap. But it feels like he may have evolved in his method because at the beginning, some of the victims were dismembered. And then they just became dumped as whole human beings, even though I hate the word dumped. Mm-hmm. They became, not lovingly placed along the beach in, the brush where he thought they'd never be found. And he, bought himself some time. But Shannon Gilbert is reported missing. And I will tell you, there are 10 victims that are associated with Lisk, which stands for Long Island Serial Killer. And there are many more that could be his victims earlier and later. They just haven't been tied to him. But they're listed on this gilgonews.com website because they could potentially be his victims. So Shannon is, working as an escort, and she, is acting out and feeling, like she has mental health issues. Her driver waits around for a long time. She doesn't come back. The driver leaves. So the driver leaves. Police come a couple of times. They never find her. They don't, they take up, reports from the people who call. And there was like a 22-minute call to 911. And they didn't release that until just this week.
State Police, Trooper Fry. State Police.
Yeah, there's somebody after me.
I'm sorry?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Okay, where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
And you can hear her sounding very disoriented, and she's trying to talk over top of the person calling and saying there's somebody after her. And unfortunately, the Suffolk County Police Department still thinks Shannon's death may be just an accident.
There has been information received during the course of this investigation that other people might be involved in this incident. They have all been investigated, and there is no reason to believe at this time that anyone else is involved in this tragic series of events. The police department has thoroughly investigated this case for more than a decade. The official cause of Shannon's death is undetermined. This official classification means there is insufficient or no evidence to determine or even to exclude an actual cause of death. The Suffolk County Police Department is open to evaluate any evidence to be able to help us and all involved determine a definite cause of death. However, based on the evidence, the facts, and the totality of the circumstances, the prevailing opinion is that Shannon's death, while tragic, was not a murder and is most likely an accident.
So what had happened is they were looking for her and then found all these bodies, found this terrible sight. They found her months later. She was there, right where she went missing, but all these other people. So other remains that were found are Maureen Brainard Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Amberlynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack. There's an Asian male doe who they think was living as a woman, who may have been murdered because, he was a escort and the murderer found out he was a male. And then there's the unidentified toddler who's with the unidentified black female, related via DNA. She was found somewhere else. And then there's 2 more Jane Does. I know. So there are 10 victims related to this one person.
I just don't understand how that could be that easy. That these bodies are just all right there.
Well, they probably aren't all right there. At first they thought, it's just terrible. I feel a little bit like Shannon might be an angel because they still think that she just wandered out, and it happens so much more than people think. People think that people that are found, they've automatically been killed. I'm not sure that Maitrice Richardson didn't have a breakdown and die of dehydration. It happens. It happens so much more than people think. I think the Lost Hill Sheriff's Department fucked up royally. But when someone has mental health issues and they don't know where to go and they're wandering.
It's no telling what happens when you're having a break.
Exactly. And people just don't buy that. They don't believe it. They want there to be a much bigger, conspiracy theory.
I'm more comfortable with that.
I am too.
Comfortable with the conspiracy theory.
Oh, no, I'm more comfortable. The other direction, sorry. I'm more comfortable with people wandering off and dying. I know it doesn't seem like it's something that should happen, but it does. I'm sorry, it does. There are many more people with mental health issues, and it's so, even I talked this over with my doctor, and she goes, people don't just wander off and die. And I'm like, yes, they do. You don't know you're going to die. You might lay down because you're tired, and then you just don't get up. There was a very beautiful young man from Southern California who told his mother he was going to commune with nature and become one with God. And he was found, off the 5 freeway near us, near Pyramid Lake. No one killed him. His skull was found. That's it. Scavenger animals scattered the rest of him. He would stand on a rock with his arms lifted, communing with heaven. You have no idea what,
happened or could have happened, yeah.
But I don't think anyone was going around. I don't think a serial killer haunted Pyramid Lake trying to kill a beautiful young man who was communing with God. Maybe, but I don't know. So Megan Waterman left the Holiday Inn after she was captured on surveillance footage, which they just released this week. And they think that she met with her killer pretty quickly after that. She was originally from Maine, and she was an escort working from Craigslist pages.
What year is it for Megan?
2010.
Okay.
And then she was, found on Gilgo Beach, and she had a reward that was $25,000, and they just this week on the newly updated website, gilgonews.com, upgraded the reward to $50,000. In my mind, that doesn't matter. A reward, in my mind, typically doesn't bring people out of the woodwork. And the people it does bring out are usually assholes who just want money and who don't really know anything.
Right.
I found that out with the Will Sarazan case, which, by the way, there'll be an update later in May because another court date about that case. But, they're the people that are maybe related but have not been officially linked. There's a beautiful woman named Peaches because she had a tattoo with peaches. There's a Fire Island Jane Doe, and there's a few others we're going to talk about in the timeline. But what happened this week was Police Commissioner Rodney J. Harrison. He showed the last images of Megan Waterman from June 6th of 2010. And he says, while much great police work has been carried out in this case, the public's help in identifying potential suspects or additional leads is critical. In 2020, there were pictures of a belt that may have belonged to the suspect, and they were released to the public. And there's a new multi-agency task force that was established just this year in 2022 in a bid to bring the person responsible for these deaths to justice. And you can see on gilgonews.com, these things have been shown in lots of other TV shows and, 48 Hours in 2020 and a lot of documentaries done specifically on Lisk. But there's a belt that was emblazoned with either WH or HM, depending on which way you turn it, And you can give tips, which we're going to, at the end of this episode, we're going to explain. You can do this anonymously. They've come up with a new internet program that you can give tips anonymously and they don't know who you are. You can text anonymously with the information I'm going to give you, and you can, hey, I know this, and no one will ever know it's you. And there's obviously a 1-800 number. You can do that too if you don't mind them knowing who you are. So I'm just going to read a timeline about, the people that may or may not be linked, and I'm going to explain. The first one could have been 1982, and she has not been officially linked. Tina Folia was 19, and she was in West Islip, New York. And this is where I think he may have changed his MO. He may have started by dismembering people in an effort to hide evidence, and then I think he just got brazen and just was like, I'm just going to dump. This will be the perfect place, this stretch of Long Island. So she was last seen at a music venue in West Islip, New York, and her dismembered body was discovered on February 3rd of 1982 next to the Southern State Parkway. She was found in 3 different garbage bags. There is unknown male DNA found on the bags, though, and this is 1982. This is early in the DNA world, so they still have that DNA, and they don't know if it's officially linked to Lisk. This is linked to Lisk. The next one is April of 1996. 2 female legs wrapped in plastic bags were discovered on the bayside shore of Fire Island, 1 mile west of Davis Park Beach. The victim is referred to as Fire Island Jane Doe. The victim's skull was found, I can't even believe this, 14 years later, almost to the day, April of 2011, west of Tobay Beach in Nassau County, and she is named Jane Doe number 7. Those 2 sets of DNA, her legs and her skull, were linked via DNA. June of 1997, the dismembered torso of an African-American female was found in Hempstead Lake Park. She's the one, Peaches, because of the tattoo. They think she was only dead for 3 days. They found her within 3 days. So she's found in June of 1997. Again, 13 years later, April of 2011, they discover skeletal human remains inside a plastic bag near Jones Beach State Park, and she's referred to as Jane Doe number 3.
So he is going, I know part of that area. He is not in one central area of Long Island. He's going up and down.
Yes, it's a very wide area. It's a very wide, when you see it on the map, if you go to gilgonews.com, it's really well done. It's an easy to traverse website. It's user friendly. They have it listed by maps, evidence, audio, video, sources, resources. It's very well done. It's easy and simple, but it's complete. Mm-hmm. It's complete. She is linked via DNA to Baby Doe, and they were both wearing similar jewelry. So someone killed her and her 1 to 2 year old toddler. November of 2000, the torso of a woman is discovered by hikers in the Long Island Pine Barrens in Manorville. The torso was wrapped in garbage bags and dumped in the woods near Halsey Manor Road. She is Manorville Jane Doe. In 2011, a pair of hands and a right foot are found in a plastic bag near Ocean Park on Gilgo Beach, and those remains are designated to Jane Doe number 6. Then in 2020, they announced that they've positively identified Manorville Jane Doe as Valerie Mack. She was born in 1976. She was 24 when she was murdered. In 2000, now this one is not officially linked. It doesn't sound like his MO, but then again, November of 2000, hunters find the body of a white or Hispanic male in the woods off the eastbound side of the Long Island Expressway in North Shirley. He had black hair, was wearing blue and white striped Gap boxer shorts. All of these details can be, found on the website. He had multiple traumatic injuries, including a crushed larynx, meaning he was strangled. And that's pretty much how every victim of Lisk has died, which brings me back to Shannon Gilbert. And what bothers me is that there was an independent autopsy done by Michael Baden. And Michael Baden can be problematic. He can be considered an amazing coroner, and also it feels like maybe he can be bought. I don't want to say it sounds terrible, bought or guided toward results that, a defense attorney. Yes, he can make things fit. I don't want to question him because he's many, many decades of being, a medical examiner. But he did an independent autopsy on Shannon Gilbert, and he said there is evidence of a chance of her having been strangled, which means she didn't just wander down to Gilgo Beach and have a breakdown and die in the weeds, But, so let's see. July of 2003. Naked and dismembered female torso, missing its head and hands, also discovered in Manorville. 7 months later, identified as Jessica Taylor. This one not officially linked, November of 2003. Badly decomposed body found in Manorville, 4,000 yards south of the Long Island Expressway. A hunter discovered the body in a wooded area 3 miles east of the woods where Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack had both been dubbed. Now, both of them are connected. This one is not exactly connected yet. Caucasian, 35 to 50 years old, 5'6", and had been murdered. He was identified in 2015, but the family has asked authorities not to release his name. So there's 2 males, not officially linked, but interesting that they are put in areas where other victims had been linked. It feels like potentially these men may have been mistaken for escorts, or, it's kind of what it sounds like to me. And this serial killer gets very angry if someone isn't what, he thinks he's getting. So March of 2007, this woman, not officially linked, unidentified Hispanic or light-skinned African-American female, washed up on the beach in a suitcase in Harbor Island Park. A few weeks after her legs washed up in different areas of Long Island. There's a stab wound on her torso. She had the tattoo of the 2 cherries by her right breast, and there's a very distinctive picture of her tattoo on this website. Very distinctive picture.
And she hasn't been identified?
Nope. Wow. So the people that are unidentified, either via missing persons report or DNA, are Peaches and Cherries. Peaches had the peach tattoo on her breast and her daughter, and Cherries had the cherry tattoo on her breast. July 2007. Maureen Brainard Barnes was last seen in her room at the Super 8 Motel in Midtown Manhattan. She left her home in Connecticut to meet a client she had booked through Craigslist. She was reported missing on July 14th of 2007. Her body is found December 13th of 2010, right on Ocean Park near Gilgo Beach, and she had been strangled. Another person not officially linked, Tanya Rush, was last seen at 3 a.m. walking down a subway station in Brooklyn. Her dismembered body was discovered on June 27th of 2008 in Belmore, crammed into a suitcase. There's a lot of suitcases used here. It was a particularly brutal murder, and there was a lot of rage associated with this, is what the police said. July of 2009, Melissa Bartholomew, definitely connected, was 24, last seen outside her apartment in the Bronx. She arranged for a $1,000 date with a client the next night somewhere on Long Island after her disappearance. This one is the one that is so difficult. Her sister received calls from her cell phone from the killer. Several of them. He used Melissa's cell phone and claimed to be the killer. Her body was discovered December 11th, 2010, right near the other bodies on Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, and she had been strangled.
What kind of calls? What did he say?
What
do we know?
I killed your sister. She was a whore. Are you a whore like your sister? Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is what started it all. Shannon Gilbert, May 1st of 2010, even though she's not officially linked, disappeared after leaving a client's house in Oak Beach. She called 911 and claimed people were trying to kill her. Several people called 911, and those have recently been released. She fled from the house and was last seen banging on doors of homes in the neighborhood while screaming for help. And it took 19 months of searching, but her body was finally found in December of 2011 on Oak Beach, like a quarter of a mile from the house where she was last seen. And there's a man who called himself a doctor. I don't know if he had a PhD or whatever, who inserted himself in the in the investigation like a jackass and said that he called Shannon's mother and said, I was operating a home for wayward girls. Yeah, he was delightful. So May of 2010, honestly, Shannon is the person that started it. I feel like her purpose was for them to look for her and then find all these other women.
Yeah.
It's, that's a terrible purpose, but God bless whatever force led people to look for her and find all these other people. May of 2010, Dr. Peter Hackett, an Oak Beach resident, called Shannon Gilbert's mother and said that he ran a home for wayward girls and had treated Shannon on the morning of her disappearance. He then later denied making the calls, but they had, looked up the phone records and proved it was him. And her mother, Mary Gilbert, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Dr. Hackett.
Wow.
Yeah. But then Mary Gilbert comes to a terrible end of her own. June 6th of 2010, Megan Waterman is last seen.
You just going to leave it right there?
No, I'll tell you what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I promise I'll tell you what happens. It's terrible. Considering how hard she fought, her daughter was the one that started this whole investigation, and how hard she fought to get justice for her daughter and what the hell happened. It's absolutely terrible. Megan Waterman is seen in upstate New York walking toward a nearby convenience store. She was staying at a Holiday Inn Express and was captured by a security camera walking out of the hotel at 1:30 a.m. Her body was found 6 months later in 2010 in December on Gilgo Beach, and she had been strangled. That is the video that they've released just 2 days ago.
Okay.
Of her. They want people to look at her to see if they remember her. I know it's been a long time. It's been 12 years, but still. September of 2010, Amber Lynn Costello is seen by her roommate leaving her home in North Babylon to meet a client. She had a client who had called her 3 to 4 times and had offered $1,500. They discovered this person calls women and offers a lot of money and gets them to respond, and then they never come home. They discovered her body December, 3 months later of 2010 on Gilgo Beach, and she had been strangled. And then December of 2010, the Suffolk County Police K-9 unit is looking for Shannon. And then they discover skeletal remains on Gilgo Beach, which turn out to be Melissa Bartholomew. And then 2 days later, they discovered 3 more sets of skeletal remains close to where Melissa Bartholomew is found. They're all within 500 feet of each other.
That's frightening.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I never go to the beach in Long Island. Straight up.
Are you kidding? You're not kidding me.
I mean, I am kidding, but I don't ever go to the beach in Long Island. I guess instinctively I knew.
Oh, okay. This is before anything?
This is instinctively I knew.
Okay. Well, you are kind of a prescient, clairvoyant. Yeah.
Don't take me to any Long Island beaches.
I think that's good. Yeah, beaches themselves are just really spooky and scary. There's sharks, there's serial killers, there's sun damage to your skin. It can get bad. I get it. April of 2011, police find 3 more sets of human remains on Gilgo Beach. That's the body of the Asian male dressed in women's clothing. He may have been transgender. What's interesting is that he was not strangled, but he suffered blunt force head trauma. There is a sketch that's on this website, so you can see it's a very good sketch too. He looks very beautiful, great bone structure. It's easy, I think, to see if you could recognize him. A skull, hands, and feet are found on the beach in September of 2011, and those are connected to the Jane Doe number 6. An unidentified female toddler referred to Baby Doe was found wrapped in a blanket, and there's no signs of trauma. They don't know what killed Baby Doe. That was Peach's baby.
I mean, how is no one looking for Peaches and her baby? Especially,
that's a great question.
Especially if Peaches has, I mean, everybody has tattoos now.
Right.
But maybe back then,
yeah,
not as common.
Right.
Black woman with a peach. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Especially with a missing baby. Come on.
I just think it's so telling that there are so many people that live a life that people don't care or keep them. I know. I'm sorry. Look,
I think this
is why I don't like to cover serials.
I think that is the real sad part, is that, maybe these weren't people who were cared about. These weren't people
exactly
with families that would, because if something happened to me, Joyce would never sleep again.
Thank you.
Never sleep again.
Thank you.
Until this was resolved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's so sad about so many of these. Is
Yep.
There's so many people without families, without friends, without a community.
Right. Yes, I know.
Create a community. Find a community.
It's easier said than done. And when you're living on the fringes of society, when you're trying to make a living any way you can, people, unfortunately, bad people take advantage of that.
And you can't really trust, who's out there that is in your community, because they're doing the very same thing you're trying to do, survive.
Sometimes, yes.
And when people are in survival mode and they're scared, they will do anything.
It's us or them.
Yep.
April of 2011, 2 more sets of remains are found on Ocean Parkway. Jane Doe number 3 and in a plastic bag, and a skull is found on Ocean Park west of Tobay Beach, which is Jane Doe number 7, and also linked to the Fire Island Jane Doe, the legs that were found in 1996. So he was spreading body parts in different parts of Long Island. What I think is fascinating is in May of 2011, the Suffolk County District Attorney said there's no evidence that these remains are all the work of a single serial killer.
I heard that on the news. I'm like, are you crazy?
Right.
What is he fired now?
There's a different one. But yeah, this is like...
But they never want to call it a serial killer, because the second you do that, people freak out. Which I understand that, but if there's a pattern...
so close together. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more frightening to think, oh, all of these bodies are found in a short distance. So there's multiple serials who just like, hey, this is a good place. I'd much rather it be, one serial as opposed to people who just think they can off people and toss them
here.
Yeah, exactly. So December of 2011, Shannon Gilbert's purse, ID, cell phone, jeans, and shoes are found on Gilgo Beach, and then they find her body 2 days later on December 13th. There's skeletal remains found February of 2012. It's a body wrapped in a bed sheet. Again, this one may not be connected. They determined the victim was a male and estimated that he'd been there for 5 years. Unfortunately, it was close to where other... the men seem to be, more in wooded areas, and the women seem to be more in the beach areas. It's so incredibly weird. So the things that they have on the website that are interesting pieces of evidence, there's pictures of skeletal remains that were found January 2013 that they say may not be linked to Lisk. It was a female in a garbage bag in Laddingtown, New York, and the victim was wearing a 24-karat gold pig pendant, and she was Asian, so it could be that she was like born in the year of the pig, potentially. I mean, oh God. So in 2014, Dr. Michael Bodden agreed to conduct an independent autopsy of Shannon Gilbert in hopes of, kind of coming up to a clear cause of death. In my mind, yeah. The results of the second autopsy are released in February of 2016, 2 years later. And Dr. Bodden says, there's insufficient information to determine a definitive cause of death, but the autopsy findings are consistent with homicidal strangulation. He also noted that Shannon's body was found face up, which is not common for drowning victims. They thought she had drowned in these low marshlands, but she was found face up. Now, water could have washed up, like if she were dehydrated and, and laying there, it could have washed up and she could have died, but she didn't. In my mind, she didn't die from drowning. I don't know that she died from strangulation, but it's pretty interesting that she's found where a lot of other women died of strangulation. Honestly, I don't even know what to say about her because I still think she's some sort of an angel that started this whole thing. Yeah. December 10th of 2015, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Tim Sinney announced that the FBI had officially joined the investigation. They had, previously helped search, but, So here's what happens in 2016, Angelique. Sweet Mary Gilbert, who, had a tough life, lost her daughter Shannon, still doesn't know what happened. One of her other daughters, Sarah, murders her in her home.
What?
Sarah was unmedicated and schizophrenic and thought that her mother was, saying things to her, and her daughter is arrested and charged with her murder.
One family hit by two horrific crimes, the latest inside this Ulster County apartment house. 27-year-old Sarah Gilbert and her mother lived in separate apartments here at 9 Warren Street in Ellenville. Police say just after 2 p.m. Saturday, Mary was found dead in Sarah's apartment.
Mary was invited into Sarah's home, and in the living room, she was knifed to death.
Attorney John Ray says Sarah is schizophrenic, in and out of mental hospitals, and turned violent in recent months, even threatening to kill her 8-year-old son.
Wow.
Couldn't be a worse thing in my mind. It just couldn't be.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So this is not officially a link. It's an interesting piece of information, but November of 2019, 54-year-old Long Island man Andrew Fry was arrested for allegedly trying to kidnap 2 sex workers on separate occasions. He was charged with multiple counts of attempted sex trafficking and attempted kidnapping. In both cases, one in July of 2019 and one in October of 2018, the women escaped by jumping out of moving vehicles. Handcuffs, knives, guns, ropes, zip ties, and manuals on knot tying were recovered in the search of his home and vehicle, and he had a history of violence against sex workers. But federal investigators are still examining whether he had anything to do with the Gilgo Beach murders 4 years later. In January of 2020, Suffolk County Police released the images, like I said, that are on the website of the belt that was found near one of the crime scenes. It's HM or WH, depending on which way. It's embossed into the leather, and you can see it in the pictures. It's really a good, clear picture. And they believe that the belt was handled by the killer and did not belong to any of the victims. They're trying to keep the DNA from that and use forensic, genetic genealogy and hope that, this person can be found. So there have been many press conferences recently, but the most recent one was literally just a few days ago. And it was so fascinating to me that they talk about this new website. They released the audio from Shannon Gilbert's phone call. They released the video of Megan Waterman leaving the hotel. And they talk about the formation of the task force. The Suffolk County Police Department issued the following statement. The formation of the task force represents the first time federal, state, and local agencies will jointly dedicate investigators to solving one of the nation's most well-known serial killer cases. The team will also continue to utilize new scientific techniques to advance this investigation and collaborate on evidence gathered throughout the decades-long case that spans from Manorville to Hempstead.
Why? Why is this the first time?
Because agencies tend to be ego-driven and hate sharing information. I will also posit the theory that several people in the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department had sketchy backgrounds, to say the least. I think things were buried. One high-ranking official was removed from office after finding large amounts of bondage and sex toys in his trunk of his state-issued car.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shit that may or not be related, but you know what? Yeah. So just 2 days ago, the Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison held a press conference announcing the release of Shannon Gilbert's 911 call in its entirety, as well as 2 other calls that were placed by different residents of Oak Beach. The recordings were released on gilgonews.com. They also plan to release the independent autopsy report performed by Dr. Bodden, which I think is fascinating. Commissioner Harrison stated, based on evidence, the prevailing opinion in Shannon's death, while tragic, was not a murder and was most likely non-criminal. Now, I'm not sure I believe that. I think it's interesting that they're coming up with all of these things, trying to give you the most updated information, the most complete information, and trying not to lead people astray. I still don't know if we're ever going to know if Shannon's death is related to Lisk, but in my mind, it's always going to be related to Lisk because she is what started this.
Right.
So if you go to gilgonews.com, you will find a million ways to submit a tip. There's an anonymous, 1-800-TIP line, 1-800-220-TIPS. My favorite is this new email program called P3 Tips, and it's www.p, letter P like Paul, 3, number 3, tips.com. It's anonymous, which I didn't think was a thing that could happen. And you can text SCPD, Suffolk County PD, with the message crimes, and you will get an anonymous version of how to text a tip that you have. You can text a tip, you can email a tip, you can call in a tip, and they are asking for your help. They are asking for your help. If you have any information, please start with gilgonews.com, gilgonews.com, and you can find a lot of different ways to submit tips. You can find a lot of the information, the evidence, timelines, maps. You can find a lot of information there. I don't care if you think, oh, you know what? I knew a guy that had a belt and his name was, William Morrison. I feel like there's too much information out there that somebody has even a tiny piece of. If you have any kind of inkling, there's lots of places you can go and do this. There's just lots of places you can do this. And what's so great about the website, it has everything. It has books written about the case. It has all of the links to the TV shows that have covered it. It has specific podcasts that have covered it. It's really all inclusive. They have worked really hard to make this an amazing resource. And I just feel like the least we can do is take a look, because something might jar your memory. You might be like, I know a guy, or I knew that girl, or because these women have come from all over. They're not all from New York. Some are from Connecticut. Some are from Maine. They're from all different parts of the world, and they ended up there, and they ended up dead.
And I wonder, how much information is sitting there that they have that they've overlooked. Because, sometimes people call and they say stuff and never gets followed up on.
That's very true.
And there's something like that in there. This case has been going on as long as it has.
Right.
Some ex-girlfriend, some neighbor lady, somebody has called and told them exactly what the situation is. It's in a file somewhere.
The only hope I can have is that now that there is a multi-agency task force, that they all really fucking share the information, that they all work together, and a whole bunch of different sets of eyes, somebody comes across that message, that piece of paper, that Post-it note with some good shit on it. That's all I can hope, because I think you're probably right. I bet you this person has been called in maybe more than once. Maybe more than once.
It's hard to do something like that for so long.
Exactly.
Without somebody saying something.
Like, that guy was acting weird, or this was strange, or you know what, I saw her get into a car, or yeah.
But then the other part of it is that so many of them are Jane Does. So many of them are, nobody's looking for them.
Disenfranchised, yeah.
So I don't know.
If you know anything, you have all of these resources. I pray that you will, I don't care if you think it's a small thing, we have found out small things can really lead to big things. And if you have a tip on a missing person or an unsolved homicide, or you just want to suggest a case for us to cover, give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. You can find us on any of the social media platforms, our Facebook page, at JT Tipsters on Instagram, at JT Tipsters Pod on Twitter, and more cowbell.